Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. I'm Jake Thorpe. I'm joined by Carson Poppenger, and today we have a very special guest that we're excited to talk with. We're joined by Kamran Bakhtiari, friend of the program and personal friend of ours. And Cam, thanks for joining us.
Really appreciate being here. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, of course. We're grateful that you're willing to hop on with us. Cam is someone who we've known for a while. He's a good friend of ours. He's an expert lead buyer, expert marketer. He's spent time running marketing for some of the largest mortgage companies in the country and in the world. He's a data science expert, currently teaches at Pepperdine. And, I had the privilege of sitting through a few of his courses. And he's now the founder of Leads Optic, which is a data optimization and really process optimization strategy platform that companies are using and getting a bunch of value out of. And Cam, I'll let you kind of talk about that a little bit more later, but we're very grateful to have you join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always a great day when I get to spend time with two of my favorite folks in the industry.
Hey, we love that. We need more green thumbs up.
That's right. You bring your own emojis.
Hopefully we don't have to do this one. Good thing I didn't have to grade you when you joined my class. It's a good thing that you went for no credit.
Yeah, this is funny. This is actually funny. So Cam was running a data visualization course. We were running a campaign with him, and I was just fascinated by the reports and the basically just the tools that he had access to that gave him intelligence into everything that was happening. And I was asking him about it. I'm like, hey, tell me a little about this. Tell me a little about this. How do you set this up? And he's like, you know what? Come and sit through one of my courses with me. So I got on one of his MBA courses and I sat in with his class and he introduced me. He's like, this is Jacob, and he's one of our a client that I work with, and I wanted him to sit in and see what we're working on. And so I kind of sat through this course and was participating. And then about halfway through, he's like, Jacob, I'm going to need you to drop off in front of his whole class. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I'm about to show him a dashboard that you can't see because you know what it means and they don't. And so I dropped off, and then Cam's like texting me while he's like, hey, you can hop back on now. I'm like, are you sure? But I had to drop off, and I don't know if you remember that, but it was pretty funny. It was cool. It's really impressive. Right. So Cam, tell us a little about Leads Optic and what you're doing. How did you get your start in the industry and get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I think there's been really great progression in the industry. I think with a lot of the changes and some of the changes that are right around the corner in January, I think there's a keen focus in the industry to focus on better quality and buying the best leads out there. So, our organization, we are working on lead scoring and lead enrichment, making sure that our clients are buying the best leads. We see, usually in the data world, in the lead gen world, there's a lot of connective tissue that has to work well. All this stuff has to come to a head and work together for companies to be successful. Buying leads is one side of it, but then you want to buy the best leads. That's where lead enrichment comes in play. Then obviously we see, some folks are really great at the lead buying, but then they're not great with the follow-up. And so, that's where, for example, Squeeze comes to play, making sure that you have the best process. All stars need to align for lead gen to work, because a 1% to 2% difference in the lead funnel at each of the different steps really compounds itself, manifests itself to either being in the black or being in the red. And, our focus is making sure that all that data that's spun off, and even introducing additional consumer data that we bring in, we can score leads, and we know exactly what leads are going to convert and which ones aren't, which ones you should expend more resources on because it is a great lead and it's got the propensity to convert, and those that don't, that you shouldn't waste your time on.
That's awesome. How'd you get started in the industry?
Yeah, so I started, I've been in marketing for quite a bit. My background, first and foremost, started more in data analytics, more on the database side, writing code, and be able to bring in a lot of companies. They have all this fragmentation and data across so many different disparate sources. And so making business decisions became an arduous task, because you don't have a full 360 view of your business. And so, my career started when I was responsible kind of bringing all this disparate data, coalescing and building the visibility for companies to make better decisions. And one of the things I really like to pride myself on is being as proactive as possible. Last thing you want to do is get through the week and realize that you should have done something on Monday to change the course of the week, or even for the day. Last thing you want to do is get through the day and it's like, oh geez, I should have taken this agent off by 10 a.m. or I should have called this lead provider by 10 a.m. because already the first 2 hours we saw that they had issues. And so we like to build real time, what we call war room style reporting analytics, to be able to proactively make decisions throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month before the game ends. And naturally, my career progressed more into marketing, and then more specifically in the lead gen industry. Marketing is great. A lot of times you go spend money on digital marketing, and some companies are measuring brand lift and those things that are a little more subjective. Lead gen industry was just a perfect match for me because you spent this money, that you can trace a dollar spent down to revenue, and I love that adrenaline rush that you get to optimize the funnel. Like, let's go run this champion challenger, let's go change this one little thing, and you can see the impact it has almost immediately on the monetization for the company, the revenue. And I always like to focus on P&L and not just be responsible for just let's go spend money, buy leads, and hope that the sales team converts them. Let's hope that our call center does well with it. I like to be able to help influence it all the way down to monetization. And so working lead gen industry has been a great match for me. I started early on in the solar days with Verengo Solar, and then spent time at LoanDepot, PennyMac, Mission Loans, and I've helped dozen or so other brands. And now that running our own company, I get the chance to work with many different brands, and it's been an awesome experience, a rewarding experience.
Well, I think, the lead buyers that are out there are really plagued with there's a lot of different sources of people that are trying to sell them leads and generate leads for them. And those providers all have so many different sources that they're getting traffic from that just runs the gamut from, co-reg type data that's, very low intent to some of the higher intent data that's out there. And there's a lot of data that's continually mined from the same sources, and you get a lot of duplication, and you get a lot of just sort of fatigue on those sources and things that just over time just kind of can perform worse and worse and worse. So the visualization that you're bringing to it, the transparency you're bringing to it, I think is something that's very needed in the industry, because these lead buyers, they need tools, they need access to this information. And so I think you're a perfect person to be able to do that, just because having worked with you, you're tracking everything.
Yep. I can attest to that. He is tracking everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about your approach, and something that I think a lot of companies struggle with, is the holistic view that you take. So, you mentioned you're not just buying leads, but you're trying to ensure that those leads turn into revenue. And something that we struggle in our position is we may work with a really great marketing team, but they may really struggle on the sales side. There may be some competition between those two organizations, or people may be a little territorial over their processes or their teams or even their employees. The people that are running the team have been with the company for 10 years, but they're really archaic in the way that they view things. So what are the tools or the things that you've found to be effective in a way to help bridge that gap between marketing and sales to ensure that everyone is rowing in the same direction?
Yeah, that's a good question. So oftentimes our approach is we got to show early wins. Like, you got to go in there the first 2 weeks, the first 30 days, you have to demonstrate wins. You have to be able to demonstrate that you can move the needle and drive revenue for the company, profitable revenue for the company. It's no different for us than it is perhaps for you guys as well. So usually within the first 30 days, we really seek to hit a home run. We seek to be able to demonstrate that, because at that point, you have the attention of the decision makers in the company all the way up to the CEO. We typically, in organizations that we go into, we're driving disruptive change, which is uncomfortable for many companies. And in order to do that, you definitely need the executive sponsors to be able to drive a disruptive change. And so getting that home run early on, getting a win early on, and showing the CEO that the changes that you're bringing about at the end of the day impacts bottom line, it usually helps. Now, we get that there's a human element to all this, so we try to focus in on that as well. So as we bring changes to processes, you shine the spotlight on weaknesses in the organization. Obviously, that could be uncomfortable for folks, and what we try to do is see it a little differently. We see it as an enablement. So, for example, one of our products, conversely, Lead Maximizer is our lead enrichment product. Our other product is Conversely AI, which listens to every call, listens to every single word, and can tell you exactly what Johnny's doing bad and what David is doing good to really help Johnny move his conversion rate higher. And Johnny can see that as a threat, that we are listening to every single thing and providing very surgical feedback on what's he's not doing right. Or if we can show Johnny how that is moving the needle and elevating his conversion rate so his commission check could be better at the end of the month, then we've just won an ally in Johnny. And so that's kind of what we try to do. Like, if we're just shining the light for the sake of throwing folks on the bus, that approach doesn't work. But if we are truly helping individual employees, individual contributors, all the way up to the C-suite and driving enterprise value, then usually we'll see wider adoption and folks won't be apprehensive to that change.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. Something that we found to be really effective when we're doing that, obviously, is to have some sort of executive sponsor. We call them ATL, above the line, right? The decision makers, the people who are signing the check. And then below the line, the people who are the managers and the directors of marketing, the people who you need to have a coalition with to build that momentum and to advocate on the lower level with the sales teams. We found that to be the way that I've approached it. And recently what I've started doing that I feel like has worked really well is I'm actually going and having FaceTime with those sales managers and the sales leads, and I'm training them and coaching them and giving that face-to-face accountability so that it's not so threatening, but they can see that, like, hey, we're just trying to help you close deals. Like, that's our objective here. And we had an experience where we had a project where it felt like we always talk about how the salesperson is our first customer, like even before those executives, because if they're excited to take a squeeze call or a squeeze opportunity, squeeze appointment, they're going to close those deals. And there was a certain team that was really struggling, but when we were doing our audits and our analysis and our transcription, AI analysis, we were finding that we were doing exactly what we were supposed to be doing, but they weren't. And so we went in and we met with their team and we said, hey, this is what you can expect from us and this is what we expect from you. And they saw a 5% lift in close rates, like 5 points, just from that meeting. Like, nothing changed procedurally other than the enthusiasm and the relationship and the accountability that we had with each other. And we found that was a really effective way to build that.
You really have to build trust. That's what it comes down to. And there's trust in these relationships, and it goes throughout the organization, like you guys said. And that's so important. And you really can't win. You can't keep that relationship. You can't keep, improving things if you don't have buy-in from people at different levels. And so, yeah, I think showing them, I like what you said, Cam, earlier about getting some early wins. That's really going to help build trust, establish trust with everyone. Yeah, because if the salespeople don't trust that we're sending them good quality, generally I'll say salespeople tend to think that we're incentivized to send bad quality. It's kind of like that's sort of their assumption, and so we have to overcome that from the beginning of the relationship, and that's important. So,
well, and Cam, the way that we operate is we're pay for performance. So if our companies that we work with, our partners, don't close deals, like, we're gone. We're incentivized to help them get a strong ROI so that partnership can continue. And that's, this year for me, that's been a big area of focus. Is it's moved from like the operational side of things, which is historically what I did a lot of, and it's focused on client training and client enablement to help them be more successful, because we can have our piece of the puzzle, really refined and working well. But if they're not in lockstep with us, then it will fail. And it'll fail quick, especially if, that first month there's no momentum and they're like, hey, I'm out.
So we've been running a pilot project, Cam, and I actually wanted to talk to you about this. As I'm sure in this limited area, your recommendations, may not be able to give us too much, but in this short time frame. But year to date, we've been running an offer for like a partner of ours. It's like home security. We've generated over 1,100 leads, and there's been 9 sales that have come through. Like, and it's a CPA type deal. So very low conversion. And the thing that I've been telling my team is we're learning so much from doing this exercise and generating the leads, because we're seeing the pains that our partners face and what they go through to get to the point where someone raises their hand and then they come in and you get them in front of a salesperson. All the things that have to sort of, like you said earlier, work in lockstep and go right for it to be successful. And we've seen it's worked, but not well enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think one takeaway that I have with my team was we see how difficult it is to get this spun up and to make this effective. The point when we get on the phone with that customer, it's important you put your best foot forward and you don't lose it at that point. There's so much science and special secret sauce and everything that goes into generating that lead. You don't want to blow it with the sales process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's interesting for us to put ourselves in the shoes of our partners and think, okay, how would we like for this to change? And then to with our current partners say, okay, like we need to be that for them. We need to ensure that they know that we have that our full attention is on their projects and the things that we're working on for them.
So Cam, how do we fix this? How do we get
I
more
would
sales?
actually see if we can kind of drill down to that 1,100 leads turned to 9 sales. And typically what we see is a lot of folks out there, there's just like a lever, it's on or off, right? And we like to see things more as a 747 cockpit. There's so much information that you can gather through, and just don't be quick to on and off throttle to figure out how else you can fine tune your campaigns to improve the conversion. So what we like to do is look at all the data. When a lead comes in, most people think that a lead only has about 10 different fields. That's first name, last name, email, phone number, address, and those common fields. But just at the lead stage, before you even reached out to a customer, before your sales team's even touched it, we typically bring in about 9 or 50 pieces of information, enrich it, and really know, is it a sales issue or is it a lead issue, right? Does that lead even fit within propensity model for the product that you're trying to push? That's before you even started operationally working that lead. And then as you work your way down, so just at lead inception, you've got about 1,000 different fields, 9 or 50 different fields, consumer data that you can comb through and do some analysis and look at it both sides. I think Mike Peranto I think it was him who called, I think on this very podcast or maybe different podcast, he said, sales and marketing, it's kind of it's a marriage counselor kind of thing between those two groups. And that's the thing. You can't just be pointing fingers at sales. Sales can't point finger at marketing. You got to figure out solutions, right? That's why I really enjoyed the space, because I focus on all the way down to the revenue. I don't just say, hey, it should be a great day because we bought a lot of leads, or hey, it should be a great day because I bought a lot of quality leads. We really focus in all the way to the bottom. And so once a lead comes in, we enrich it. We've got all that information. We really know we can make a very good argument whether we got good leads or bad leads. And then you're spinning off more data operationally. Every single call that goes out, you got breadcrumbs on that. You got data you could sift through. Once it heads to your sales team, and this is an area that's been transformative. I think you guys are doing this as well. It's something that we help our clients with. We harness the power of AI. Again, we have a product called Converse AI that produces a ton of data, right? It's data that you typically can't go through because it's not humanly possible to sit down and listen to every single call. When we talk to clients, say, how many of your calls do you guys QA? And usually the best companies are doing 1 per agent per week, maybe 3 per agent per week. A lot of companies, they're just very honest. They go, we don't really QA calls unless there's a need, something like, there's a complaint or something like that. And so with the power of AI, you can listen to every single call and see what is spun off and see exactly what Johnny's doing well compared to David, and really coach that sales rep in terms of, hey, it's your intro or it's these specific words that you need to kind of focus in on that's going to really elevate your conversion. So, we focus on the data. We look at things subjectively, every single step in the funnel, produces data. And again, we aim to optimize at every single step. The lead gen industry is a hard game. You got to buy leads. You got to get in any industry where only half the leads you could ever get on a phone call. Right there, half your marketing expense is wasted on leads that you never could get on a phone. And then the ones that you do get on the phone, depending on the different industries, you have a different transfer rate that you really get an at-bat to pitch. But by the time you get to a pitch, you're usually about 85% of your leads are completely gone. And some people like to focus in on just what went right. Let's focus on the 2%, the 5% that turned to revenue. Let's focus on those and see what was common on those. And we like to look at the opposite way. That's important. We don't want to neglect that. But we also like to look at the 95% that didn't follow the happy path and figure out what could we learn from that? What could we do different? Sales, marketing, operations. And some of these industries, it's a little more complicated. It's not always the salesperson's fault. I'll bring Mortgage example. When you look at the data, you could see that perhaps, hey, all things equal, this salesperson is doing their job right, but they're not great at converting leads that are loan amounts between $125,000 and $150,000. And that then becomes a clue that if conversion is different at these different loan thresholds, that might be a capital markets issue. And that could also go back to marketing, right? Because capital markets may purposely, intentionally, adversely put certain rates, certain margins on lower loan amounts, and then therefore marketing should not be buying those leads. But at the end of the day, that data, if you really dig into it, segment in different ways, it's not just looking at what's the conversion rate by the rep. You're looking at conversion rate by lead source. You're looking at conversion rate by loan amounts. You're looking at conversion rate by state. You're looking at conversion rate by FICO bands. And then now we're talking about a much bigger picture. What is our capital market strategy? What's our lead buying strategy? What are our different lead sources? Where is the rep really good? Where is the rep not really good? And those things. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of leads that just are tire kickers. A lot of leads that are low quality. And so through our data enrichment process, we like to look at a different conversion rate. So yes, you will, if you got 100 calls and you converted 5, that's a 5% conversion. But what we like to look at is which of those leads were actually convertible. Which of the leads actually our lead scoring shows was a true opportunity for you to convert. And we want to see how many of those you're actually converting. And typically in amongst that segment, we should have at least a 30% conversion is what we focus in on. And that way we could see and if you focus on those calls, we know that lead was convertible, and then you just focus on coaching those ones specifically.
That's there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, that was such great information you were sharing. And, I think about, the AI stuff that you mentioned, and we've been working on building our own AI solution as well for similar reasons. And, when we applied AI on this home security project I was telling you about, where we've had 9 sales, we were able to listen through that sales call, and we'll know before any sales data comes back whether someone did an application or whether they scheduled an installation. And then we'll have that data from the phone calls most of the time before sales even reports it back, or we get it through the CRM or something. And that's it's so much power in that information. And it's great that you've got a solution that you guys are using. I think it's really where the future's going. Everything's getting, and this is just making everything more efficient. There's so many things to optimize. You've got to have a tool to do that. And I think you hit the nail on the head that you cannot listen to those calls and 100%. So AI can tease out a lot of the little things that are happening, and then you can make those adjustments.
And with the new changes coming about in January, really they've already taken into effect for most companies that are ahead of it. The importance, it's even more imperative that people's processes and their strategies are in line. I'm hearing 25 to 40% impact on lead volumes, but costs are going to go up as well. So leads will become more scarce and the cost will go up. Mm-hmm. And so having a strategy to make sure that those leads are treated in the way that they should be to convert is going to be even more important. How are you approaching that, knowing that that's coming in the next couple months?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. We anticipate lead costs will go up, so I think our hypothesis is spot on with what your hypothesis is as well. And therefore, the importance, the urgency around, no pun intended, squeezing every ounce of juice out of every single lead is more profoundly impactful, right? When you're buying leads at $10, you could waste a lot of leads, but when the lead cost is going up 2, 3x that, then you got to recoup that in conversion. And we'll naturally see that if the leads are matching with less providers, it's a better customer experience. I think naturally we should see a better conversion rate, all things equally, maybe if you don't do anything. But that's why we think it's so paramount to focus on operational improvement, operational discipline across the full funnel, and make sure that you're getting the improvements. You know, I want to go back to a point you made earlier, Carson. You talked about the right tools to do this, and things have changed so much. Like even obviously using the power of AI, et cetera. We've talked about it a few times on this podcast in terms of how that can improve things. But even on the data front, what we see is a lot of companies struggle because they're still working within the limitations of Excel. That's their tool of choice for analysis. And with Excel, you're limited to, I believe, 1 million rows if that hasn't changed recently. And so in your case, if you're making 500,000 calls a day, you can only analyze 2 days worth of data if you're using Excel. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but we had a client who's doing that. They're making a ton of calls and they're trying to use Excel to try to drive to some conclusions, and they couldn't do it. And so what we're seeing is you have to bring all this data in. Like one of the companies we work with, they had over 50 million rows of data, and they just couldn't. There was blind spots in their business because they couldn't do that type of analysis with an Excel. So we bring all that data into a data warehouse. Our tool of choice is Snowflake for that. And we're able to see some simple stuff that you were just simply overlooking. I think with you guys' background call centers, you guys would appreciate this, but the overall, they'd make just very general statements around things. And when you actually peel the onion back and look at very specifics, when you go down to the data, for example, we were seeing okay, their overall contact rate was a certain rate, but when we actually drilled down to certain area codes, like 702 versus a 949 versus others, we're seeing area code by area code, there was a huge variance on contact rate. Like, one area code was half the contact rate as another one. And then when you actually connect that to their inventory of DIDs, we're quickly able to see, well, hey, this is simple. The reason why your contact rate is so low in this area code is because you don't even have any phone numbers in your repertoire, in your inventory that you're making outbound calls on. So, it's just so challenging because a lot of people are trying to make decisions using data analysis within Excel, which is a great tool. There's a place for it. It obviously is impactful, but in today's world where so much data is spun off, you need to be able to connect all the different disparate data sources. You need to be able to build a 360 view of the business. And usually when you do that, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of rows of data. And you will have to invest into a data warehouse to be able to do that type of analysis.
And sometimes that initial jump is pretty scary, I think, for people. Or they might not have the tools or the budget to do that. But that's when leveraging a partner like Squeeze can come into play, where we can help do some of that heavy lifting for you and provide some insights into your business that you may or may not know already.
And Leads Optics
as well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cam's worked with us a couple times. He's on a number of different projects.
There's a brand we're working with, and we told them, you need to invest in data warehouse. Just sign this. Trust me, you need Snowflake. And the CEO goes, what is Snowflake? I don't even know what I'm signing up for. I said, just trust me. And it only took a few weeks. Once they realized the power of it, it's been completely transformational. And again, Snowflake's not the only solution out there. There's plenty of other great tools, Databricks, Azure, et cetera. But bottom line, focusing on building out a data lake in your organization, bring in all the different disparate data sources across CRM, dialer, all your customer journey touch points, et cetera. Building a 360 view of your campaigns, of your marketing spends, of your customer, and of your business operations, and removing the blind spots, making decisions on what's critical in your business in real time and not being delayed in those decision making is really what's going to help elevate businesses that are going to do well and those that are going to struggle.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, Cam, we really appreciate you hopping on with us. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, and I think Cam's going to be joining us in for our live panel discussion. And big thumbs up
Down in Miami.
in Florida.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. But Cam, any closing thoughts or things that you'd like to wrap up with?
Yeah, I always like to suggest, oftentimes I've been surprised. We always think we know things best. We always think our years of experience, et cetera, we should do things certain ways. I'd always say run champion challenges. There's been a lot of things that I've been surprised by, and always running experiments, always running testing is really what's going to change things. Running things status quo is only going to get you status quo results. By always having some champion challenger tests running, whether it's creative testing, whether it's different contact strategy, that's how you're going to be able to constantly drive improvements each and every month. And so we love champion challenger testing. We really believe like kind of leaving things to the experts. Some companies are trying to do too much at once, and that's where working with Squeeze, they know how to do call centers really well. We see companies try and build call centers within a company. If you're a solar company, your business is solar. That's what you'd be good at is selling solar. You may not necessarily be good at building call centers. And so sometimes just running champion challengers, not being fearful of outsourcing and being able to see what those results are. And you should be able to see some progress on improving your results.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's great. Something that, just my kind of closing thoughts is, Cam, you mentioned just that holistic approach to the marketing funnel and seeing these 1% improvements in all of the different parts of that funnel that can be the difference between profitability and going under. I think that making sure that everybody is aligned on those objectives is just so important, because it's really easy, to your point, to rely on your experience and to rely on what you're comfortable with. But sometimes expanding that comfort zone and looking in areas that might make you a little bit more uncomfortable or be a little bit more foreign to you can expand your vision and help you understand things in a way where you can be way more effective and affect a lot more change on the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in our industry, we're in an industry that is kind of largely grown through, people that, have used like the art, I think, more of the decision making, where you're like, you have a gut feel, you have instincts, you have your experience, and you're like, I know that this is what's happening, I know this is what's true, so this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to make our decisions. And moving into more of a data-driven, data-driven decision making, using the right tools and the right people and the right processes, I think, is really where everything's going. You really, if you're not already thinking that way, you're kind of behind the ball. If you're still kind of trying to look at the feel of things and gut feel and things, that's just not going to work for you. But there's a lot of sacred cows in companies too, especially the older companies that have been operating a long time. They may have, like Jacob said, a lot of sacred cows and a lot of this is the way we do things here. And we've gone in many cases over the last 15 years, we'll say, well, let's make these recommendations, and we recommend we change this and this and this and this, and then we can start to see some improvements. And they'll say, yeah, but we're not going to change those things. We're just going to keep, there's reasons that we don't do that. Okay, well, those reasons are preventing you from making incremental improvements and making positive change in your campaigns and your processes. And so, anyway, I think it's been great to chat with you, Cam. You're so talented and knowledgeable and experienced with all this, and love to see your success with Leads Optics. I think you're going to do phenomenally with whoever you work with, and anybody that engages with you, you're going to see benefits and improvements. And so, highly recommend Cam and his team at Leads Optics.
Yeah, I echo that. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining. And
all about the culture of winning.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.
Make sure you comment and ask questions, like and subscribe to what we're doing. We got more great content coming out. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.